Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the NFL Podcast. As this video will be recorded, will be put on to Podomatic as audio, and this video is also being live and will be simulcast on YouTube as well, as I'm being filmed right now. So, big news over the weekend in the NFL. Antonio Brown, he seems to be the talk of the league basically for the last month, or he's been in the headlines all the time. So, Antonio Brown has been released by the Oakland Raiders and was picked up by the New England Patriots. So as of right now, it is 9:31 Eastern time as I'm recording. First take is on in 30 minutes. Undisputed Skip and Shannon started just about right now. So that'll be a huge topic in sports right now. This is being talked about in Boston right now. It's a huge story on talk radio. So here I am trying to deliver kind of my opinion, kind of what I think of the story. So, in preparing for this podcast, two sources that I use the most. I've read The Athletic. That's what I use the most. So, here's a great story from Vic Tafur, who covers the Oakland Raiders for The Athletic. So, kind of what I thought of his story. So, kind of how it all started. It's basically Antonio Brown in Oakland was with the Steelers, was traded, and I thought, great, he's out of Pittsburgh, going all the way back to March, and now and pretty much the drama will start all over again. So, was late for meetings and missed practice. Again, late for meetings and missed practice. That shows you're probably not 100% committed to the team if you're not attending the meetings and you're missing practice, so obviously you're behind schedule. And then I don't think he had a very good relationship with Mike Mayock either. I mean, we heard the stuff that went on last week, got into fights with Mike Mayock. It was only the preseason, but he missed a walkthrough and then was fined for that. So you miss things like that. Practice. It's one thing to miss practice when you're hurt. It's another thing to choose to miss practice when you're healthy. And I think also in the article it mentioned that maybe dominated in practice as well. And the Raiders were really looking forward to having him play. So all that happened, and was fined $50,000, $53,000 by the team. And then he basically put it on, I think it was Instagram, Twitter. He put it on social media. You know, Antonio Brown's very active on social media, as we know. And basically told the whole world what happened by putting it on social media and called out the Raiders. And you went after Mike Mayock. You're breaking the rules, and you're complaining that you're getting fined for breaking the rules. A normal NFL player. You go to practice. You go to the meetings. If you really want to be involved and know what's going on, I think that's what you do, and that's what you need to do. And despite all that, so you're complaining about that. You're complaining about that. When you do things like that, you're going to get fined, and it should be a message. Maybe the fine was too high. That's clearly what he thought. And basically took a picture of it. You know, I saw it in the article. So then another thing, another incident went on last week, and we went on at length about 3 weeks ago, now 4 weeks ago, about that helmet issue, where he apparently didn't think it was his helmet that he wore, didn't think was right for the league or anything like that. And granted, things have changed. We thought that was it. we thought that would be the last of the Antonio Brown drama in Oakland, and he was ready to play for the Raiders. Apparently not. Apparently not. So then, after what happened with Mike Mayock, that incident, it, again, just got into an argument, basically. Pretty brutal argument. Got suspended. And then, so he's suspended, thought, okay, he's going to miss the first game of the year. And then Jon Gruden allowed for and Brown to play, thought, okay, he's going to play tonight. Or on Thursday, the suspension was lifted, so would have played tonight if he was still on the Raiders. Which he's not. And thought, okay, he's going to play. You know, apologize to the team. Thought, okay, everything's good. Let's just put this behind them now. That was on Friday. He's going to play. Can we now just watch Antonio Brown play for the Raiders? It's obviously Raiders fans. And Jon Gruden, who, again, he's basically running things, gave up draft picks for him, the 3rd and 5th round, so kind of mid-level draft picks. Nothing like what he gave up, what he acquired before. He thought, okay, looks like they have things going their direction now. We just kept waiting for things to settle down. We'll just play for the Raiders for a few years, or however long he's on the Raiders for. And I think when he really lost it is he's fined again for that incident with Mike Mayock. This time $215,000, which is a lot of money. You know, it's not a huge dent, but definitely that's a significant portion. I mean, he's been fined. When you go through his previous fine and that, it's about $268,000 right there in total. So you look at those two figures, and obviously that's a lot of money right there to be fined. So I'm sure he's fed up with being fined. And granted, getting into a fight with the general manager at that degree is not normal. It means you have a poor relation with him. Did he deserve to be fined for that? I don't know, but he was. I think that's when he really lost to the Raiders organization. And on Saturday morning, not long after I woke up, asked to be released by the Raiders on Instagram. So my thoughts on Instagram, where my reactions are. You basically went out, put on Instagram so everybody can see it. Millions of people saw that he wanted to be released by the Raiders. You didn't go up into the office and tell Mike Mayock you wanted to be released, so you didn't tell him in person. You just said it on social media. Great, that's great. I personally, I wasn't a fan of that. I think you should have just told the Raiders personally you wanted to be released, and maybe he did. I don't know, but I think that's when he had it with the Raiders. Like, he thought he put everything behind him, and then they fined him again, and then just another thing happened. And then I thought, okay, maybe he's half joking, maybe he's just fed up with the Raiders. Maybe that's Antonio Brown being Antonio Brown. Always seems to say stuff on social media. And that's basically what happened. And sure enough, a few hours later, he was released by the Raiders. Just a few hours later. So now that he's a ex-Oakland Raider, I was wondering how quickly he would sign. Sure enough, about, just hours later, maybe it was around, 5, 6 o'clock, certainly by Saturday evening, was with the Patriots. So, again, within a day, was released, but asked to be released, and then was a Patriot. So, was it his plan all along to play with the Patriots? People have said that. In multiple articles. And I was surprised that he was signed by the Patriots. I wasn't terribly surprised at all, really. I mean, I thought that would be the perfect place for him to go. Right there, and I'm sure the Patriots, under their conditions, will be willing to have him. and I think a team that already won the Super Bowl just got better. So again, his Raiders tenure lasted about 6 months. It's crazy. I never ended up playing a game for the Raiders. It was just that bad, I thought. He just had a terrible relationship with the Raiders. I don't think he had a very good relationship with John Gruden. It might have been okay at best. Maybe mediocre. With Mike Mayock, it was terrible. They did not get along at all. And that's the reason why they ended up losing. So again, for his behavior, he was questioned why he was getting fined. So again, I thought, you know what? Did behaviors, did the type of things that you're not supposed to do as an NFL player, that most players don't do, and really shouldn't do. Got fined, and then questioned, why am I getting fined for the things I'm doing? So he thought it was okay to break the rules. He basically thought in Oakland he could do whatever he wanted to, and it was mentioned in those articles. And it is true. And the Raiders did let him go until he just went too far, and then when they said he went too far, he said, okay, I just want to get out of here. So that was kind of what I found in Vic Tafer's article. You know, Vic, that was a great article. I enjoyed reading it, and you know, that was really good content. So next, this is from the Athletics' Tim Kawakami, who also covers the Raiders. And reading him, and I think that is quite clear, John Gruden did not handle Antonio Brown properly. I think that is right. Since again, talking about earlier how he was able to, all the things he did before and was able to get away with, like maybe saying, oh, it's okay for Antonio Brown to miss practice. Oh, miss this mini camp, OTA, miss this workout, miss this meeting. Oh, I guess that's okay, right? And I guess Gruden was fine with it. As long as he's with the team, as long as he's productive with us in the regular season, that's what matters. I guess it doesn't matter what happens in practices or games, or practices, as long as he's ready to play in games. And that appeared to be the case. That appeared to be the case for months. And granted, it did not work out at all. And you know, I listened to some of his press conference this morning, what he said a couple days ago. And the point was just, you know what? Antonio Brown just did not work out in Oakland for one reason or another. Whether it was well, character-wise, he did not work out in Oakland, for one. And two, he just, you know, I think the behaviors he was doing, and apparently the Raiders tolerated it a lot less than the Steelers did. Since he managed the last 9 years with the Steelers. And then in Oakland, he managed to last, didn't even make it to this first game with the Raiders. Didn't even last a game there, much less a season. So, really just very disappointing. Raiders tenure. I mean, I imagine if you're a Raiders fan, you had an Antonio Brown jersey throughout the fan base. I think this is very disappointing to them, the coaching staff already. And Gruden said he's looking forward to coaching Antonio Brown, and just didn't handle him properly. I guess didn't use enough discipline. Like, thought, okay, we'll just let Antonio Brown do what he wants to, and it led them to this far. And apparently the general manager of the front office, Mike Mayock, would not tolerate what was going on. Let Antonio Brown know twice, and it led to his release. So again, in Gruden saying, look, I wanted to coach Antonio Brown, didn't work out, saying, yes, I hope it works out in New England, which I think it will. It's hard to say for sure, but I think so, and I'll get more into that as we go further along, but I'm confident that that'll work out in New England. So, and then Gruden was also saying, okay, I'm ready to move on. And Antonio Brown's just one player on this team. With the whole rest of the team, you know, he was coaching the rest of the team when Antonio Brown wasn't there, and the players are obviously used to being without Antonio Brown. You know, he wasn't with them in practice. He wasn't with them during the preseason games. Certainly didn't play in the. I don't think played in the preseason at all. And really, I heard talk about it a lot on broadcast last night throughout the NFL. Oh, players are not playing in the preseason less and less, which I guess makes sense if you're a veteran star like that. I understand. You know, I think Julio Jones skipped the whole preseason. I understand. Ezekiel Elliott did too. Didn't play in preseason games. That makes sense. But just not practicing was the other thing. And yeah, and Gruden's just ready to move on. Okay, what happened happened. We don't have Antonio Brown anymore. We don't have Antonio Brown. Now it's just time to move on, and for the most part, coach the rest of the team. So now, and this is not the first time that Gruden has lost a talented player. I know his first year was hired. Apparently was, and I was reading the article in more detail. Apparently was not willing to, this is from Tim Kawakami, was not willing to pay for Khalil Mack. So they traded him. Got a first round pick from the Bears this year and also next year, I believe. It is next year. And so gone was Mack. And then you had Amari Cooper. Traded him to Dallas. So they go from a Raiders team where you don't quite know what they are. Maybe they hire Gruden. Maybe makes them better. Maybe Del Rio's just not the right coach. Well, you trade your best receiver, maybe in your best offensive player overall, and your best defensive player overall, and Khalil Mack, who was a defensive player of the year candidate. Now they're in maybe Super Bowl contenders. I mean, the Bears might have been that way if they would have beaten the Eagles. Who knows? And maybe they are that way again. I don't know. It's too early to tell after that Week 1 game of the Cowboys. I watched that game yesterday against the Giants. They looked great yesterday. They looked great, and granted, it's only one game. You know, after one game, you can make a lot of judgments and assumptions. But like I said, so you trade them. In comes Antonio Brown, and also the difference between those trades, Khalil Mack, and granted, the Bears were a lot better better. I'd say they're better than expected. I did not expect them to go 12-4 last year. They had something like the 24th pick. You know, the picks are all based on where you finish in the playoffs. So, okay, you got an extra first-round pick, and then from the Raiders, you got another extra, or from the Cowboys you did. So, okay, you got the 27th pick. Good for you. So you got extra draft picks to work with. And Antonio Brown, granted, for the type of player he was, you gave up a lot less than what the Bears had to give up. They had to give up a huge amount, or what the Cowboys had to give up. So what it ended up being was 3rd and 5th round pick. Okay, so you basically got nothing out of it. You gave up all that since, one, when someone's traded from one team to another, you assume that they're going to at least play a game for them, a season for them, much less a game or whatever. That was one of the most bizarre tenures I've ever seen. And it's on everybody. It's on everybody. And the Raiders, just what they did is, you know what the Raiders are. And you know what the Raiders are? They're a dysfunctional franchise. The things they do, they make a lot of bad decisions. They do not operate right. And what they did with Antonio Brown is they could have said, okay, what happened in Pittsburgh all those years is not happening here. We don't do things here. All right. You can do things our way. If you try to do things your way, you're not going to last long here. So do you want to play for the Raiders or not? You're not going to do things the way that you did in Pittsburgh. All right. We don't do this here. This is not the Raider way. So if you do these things that you do in Pittsburgh and you not get overrated, you need to be part of this team. You're going to be just like everybody else. You're not going to get any special treatment here. And you're going to do things this way. Maybe these things don't escalate out of control like they did. But they didn't. Instead, what they did is they let Antonio Brown, as I said earlier, do whatever he wanted. they let him miss practice. They let him miss a meeting. Oh, you sure, Antonio, you can miss this meeting. Oh, sure, you don't have to practice today. And basically, eventually got out of control. So they fined him, and apparently was upset when they fined him. So eventually, and granted, they wanted to keep him. That's why they got him. They wanted him here. They wanted Antonio Brown more than Antonio Brown on the Raiders. That's clear. So then gets released. I mean, he asked for it, so he's not going to get any money from the Raiders. So he asked for the release. So now the question is, what is next for him? And he'll be moving on to New England. So if the Raiders thinking about them, what they have done, and this is not the first time this has happened. I mean, for the last 15 years, they've been one of the worst teams in the NFL almost every year. And whatever they do, being bad sometimes benefits, right? They're sort of like what the Browns were for years. Of course, the Browns appeared to recover, but the way they played yesterday, I'm going to have to look more into deeper detail of that. Who knows? But the Raiders, for so many years, a once successful franchise, they went to a Super Bowl. I mean, they've played in one playoff game since then. One playoff game. So you can't even be a top 6 team in your own league. You can't even make it to the playoffs more than once. And just things that cause the Raiders to be bad. Well, bad front office decisions, maybe not very good coaching hires, bad drafting. Maybe the biggest thing in a team having always constantly getting things wrong is bad drafting. Since in order to get good, you need to hit on draft picks. Not just first or second round picks, but even middle to even, or maybe you find someone in the 6th or 7th round that maybe no one else found. And granted, 6th and 7th round picks more times than not probably don't do very much in that. But the Raiders were very poor at drafting. Sure, they brought in big-time players, free agents. Randy Moss is a great example, and I think this situation right now is you could easily compare that to Randy Moss. In fact, I thought of that pretty quickly, and really thought even more about it when Antonio Brown signed with the Patriots, but just other organizations in sports that are like the Raiders and other sports leagues, so MLB, NBA, NHL, organizations that maybe had success, have a reputation, are very well known, very famous. The Knicks are a great example, who were once very successful, especially in the 1990s. Granted, they never won an NBA championship in that time span, but now in recent years, it seems like really for the last 15 years, making a lot of bad decisions, like how did they, and it seems like when they finally seem to get it right, like the Raiders, they finally seem to get everything right. They had Derek Carr, they had Khalil Mack, who they both got in the same draft. They were a playoff team. They looked well on their way to a first-round bye, possible even Super Bowl contender maybe. When you get a first-round bye, you have most of the time I consider a team that has a first-round bye a Super Bowl contender. But then Derek Carr gets hurt. All of a sudden, they go from a Super Bowl contender to, they lost their home field advantage in the division to the Chiefs. And they get eliminated in the first round by the Texans. They have no shot at all to win that game. And you think, okay, they're going to come back. Everything's going to be fine this year. They have everyone back. It's going to be a new look. That doesn't happen. They kind of play around 500. In comes John Gruden. And then everything that they seem to get right for that brief span, what Reggie McKenzie built in Oakland, and was finally building towards success, just goes away. You fire your general manager. You bring in Mike Mayock, which, again, somebody who seems to be very knowledgeable about the draft every year. So you think what your TV success will translate in the front office. You think that's going to carry over. It seemed like a Raider-like move, and we'll see. It's early. We need to give it more time. But again, they've lost a lot of talent. Amari Cooper. Think about how well he played yesterday in Dallas. Khalil Mack. Two huge, big reasons why their teams, especially Cooper and Dallas, last year made it to the playoffs and are possibly Super Bowl contenders. Let them go. Antonio Brown. Same thing in New England. And other dysfunctional. I also want to think of the Mets, what they do. They seem to get a lot of things wrong, and they're in the news for it. But when maybe every once in a while they get something right, and when they do get it right, they manage to lose it pretty quickly, and they can't just have success over a long period of time. Another franchise in mind who I thought about was that Edmonton Oilers. For year after year, they were terrible. They won a lot of draft lotteries. Whatever great picks they had, they whiffed on, and it just shoved them back more and more. And they got this franchise superstar. It appeared they had everything going in their way. It appeared, now they're taking the next step. And then when they appear they're ready to take a big step forward, they just end up taking a big step backwards. Again, it's the same cycle all again. So that's what the Raiders have been. And even more extreme. Where you missed the playoffs years and years in a row. And maybe you get something right, and you think, finally, something's going well. Like the Knicks, they thought they got it right with Porzingis. They did not. He gets hurt, never plays for him again. Or you think about what happened with Carmelo Anthony. Comparisons like that. When they finally get it right, they managed to, even when they get it right, they managed to mess that up or whatever. So, that's what the Raiders have been stuck on, really, for the last 15 years, probably soon going on 20. And they're leaving Oakland, and this is what Raiders fans have to see. They thought they might have built something in Oakland for the last few years in Oakland for the fans to see. And success in Oakland, they thought maybe the fans in Oakland could maybe see them win a Super Bowl before they left. Now they're going to Vegas, and John Gruden has 9 years left of his coaching contract. I mean, why would you give a coach a 10-year contract? That makes no sense to me. So I don't know. And this is just year 2 of John Gruden. How much of that term is he going to make it for? And if the Raiders do have success under Gruden and Mayock, it's going to be in Vegas, not Oakland. Since whatever they did, it's just, wow. Wow. So if I had to do the blame, if you had to divide the blame, who would I blame more? Since they had the same problem with Randy Moss, that was a disaster in Oakland. Do I blame Antonio Brown more? Or do I blame the Raiders more? Why I can put the blame on Gruden and, well, for letting Antonio Brown do whatever he wanted to. And Antonio Brown, he took way too much advantage of the type of things the Raiders were giving him, like the treatment the Raiders were giving him. He went too far. Maybe the Raiders went too far by fining him, especially that amount. Like, I don't think he deserved a $215,000 fine or anything. And Antonio Brown did not handle those well. Like I said, oh, wow, that was a big fine. Maybe I need to change. Nope, just kept doing the same things. And when he was going too far, went further, and the Raiders were willing to keep him for as long as they could. And when Antonio Brown just lost it for the last time, after going too far again, decided to leave. So, if I had to say the things were, again, I think it's 50-50 really. The Raiders not controlling Antonio Brown and not saying, hey, the rules here apply to everybody. Everybody must do the same thing. I don't care who you are. This is how we do things with the Raiders. That was not the case. So when Antonio Brown never thought he was doing anything wrong, basically thought he could do whatever he wanted to in Oakland. And he could do a lot of things, but not literally whatever he wanted to. So that's how it all downfolded. They had a poor relationship with each other. Maybe never really wanted to play for the Raiders. I think just wanted to get out of Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh was tired of dealing with him, so they got rid of him. And with the Raiders, I think Antonio Brown was tired of dealing with the Raiders. So here we are. So is now out of Oakland. So now going to the Patriots, it's interesting to see what happens there. The Patriots, this is from The Athletic's Jeff Howe, who writes for the Patriots. I mentioned the Patriots were interested in him as far back as March, which I think that was interesting. You know, to be honest, I don't recall that as much, but I thought that was interesting. The Patriots maybe wanted him for a while. Maybe he wanted to go to New England. And I said this earlier. Does this remind me of what happened with Randy Moss in Oakland? It sure does. Where you had a premier receiver who was probably at times, and you could always debate it for sure, best receiver in the league over that span. Like, dominated the league for years. Organization got tired of them. Maybe they got tired of the organization too. Went to Oakland, which that is not the, based on what is going on, that is not the organization that many players around the league want to play for. Goes to New England, and I'm not saying he's going to catch 24 touchdowns, but is he going to break records? He might break records. That's possible. It could work out great. But here's another thing about New England, and this is the same thing with Bill Belichick. They're not going to tolerate what's been going on what happened in Oakland and Pittsburgh. They're not going to tolerate that. In New England, the rules apply to everybody. And Antonio Brown has to change in New England. And I think he will. I think New England wants to play for the team that has just won the Super Bowl, has the best shot to win the Super Bowl again. I said they would just a week ago. And now you have Antonio Brown. The Super Bowl champions have gotten better. But it has to work out. If Antonio Brown is having character issues and is causing problems in New England, they're going to get rid of him. So I don't know how much tolerance they will have for this, what's been going on. The Steelers tolerated it for a long, long time. And I don't know when it really started. I think it's been going on for a few years. A number of years. At least 3 or 4, maybe longer. I don't know. But the Raiders, they tolerated it for a while. And then they started to get annoyed by it. Apparently Antonio Brown got annoyed by the Raiders and just asked to leave, and when he was released, made a huge deal about it. So that was on social media. So Antonio Brown, very interesting social media post for sure over the last week. And then finally, with the Patriots, Bill Belichick's had to deal with a lot of players over the years. I mean, he's dealing with Josh Gordon now. He's been suspended by the league. I think his case is different. His case is very different than Antonio Brown's. And has dealt with them. So I think Bill Belichick can handle him. I think he can. If he decides that he can't, he's going to get released. And Antonio Brown's not going to ask for it. It will be under the Patriots' terms and not his. So it has to be careful in New England. What happened in Oakland is not going to happen in New England. Since one, the Patriots are not going to tolerate it, and two, if you want to play with the Patriots for an extended period of time and you want to win a Super Bowl in New England, then you have to do it their way. Not your way, their way. And I think the Raiders should have done, maybe not to the exact same degree, but to a similar degree as the Patriots. And they failed to address that. And in New England, if things get bad, like remember Randy Moss, who was there had 3 very productive years, but when he started to complain and started to, question what was going on, they got rid of him. They didn't have a problem with it at all. And Randy Moss was really never the same after leaving the Patriots. So Antonio Brown, is he going to play for a 4th team? He might, or he could become a Patriot. So, think about scenarios. Best case scenario, becomes a Patriots legend, wins multiple Super Bowls with Tom Brady, then has success with Jared Stidham, and just another Patriot, another successful Patriot from the dynasty area. What I expect to happen, I think, does well with the Patriots, is a 1-year deal. So if he really likes in New England, I think will come and stay. If he doesn't, or the Patriots decide, okay, you did well for us, but we let a lot of players go. You can go somewhere else now. Worst case scenario, things go so poorly with the Patriots that is basically doesn't even finish this year out. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, as I said, the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. Antonio Brown's going to be a big part of why the Patriots win the Super Bowl, and they're going to decide whether he is still worthy of them or not, whether he's going to how long he's going to stay there. So it's going to be at least 1 year. I think it could be more than that. This could work out just great. But I really don't know how it's going to work out. But I think the Patriots are a much better fit than the Raiders or even the Steelers. And with the Patriots, you have to buy into their way. And I think that's going to happen. And will there be any incidents? Sure, there might be a few. Certainly nowhere near to the degree I think that happened in Oakland. But there might be a few stuff. But Antonio Brown cannot go too far, and the Patriots will do everything in their power to make sure this doesn't happen again what happened in Oakland. And if it does, he's not going to be there very long. So we'll see. We'll see. I think it will work. You now have Tom Brady as your quarterback on a team that just won the Super Bowl and is favored by many people to win again. So this is a much better fit. Good for the Patriots, bad for the Raiders. If they ever lose Antonio Brown, I don't think it would hurt them that much. I mean, sure, that's a big loss, but that's what the Patriots are good at. They're good at moving on from players when they feel that they're ready to move on. So it'll be interesting to last. Now, I'm excited to watch them with the Patriots. I'm interested to see what the news is like. I think things will start to calm down. So I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for listening to this edition of the NFL Podcast. Also simulcast on YouTube video. And we will see you next time.